Welcome to the Prado Museum in Madrid, and we are here again with our weekly session in English, participation on the museum's social media programming, and a project that's for outreach in English that's supported by American Friends of the Prado Museum. We are a U.S. nonprofit that supports this museum and also work very much in collaboration with the Spanish Amigos del Museo del Prado. We encourage everyone to find out about what we do and to participate, and we thank everyone who already does and makes our actions possible. Today we are in a beautiful room dedicated to works of religious art, especially from Venice. It is parallel to the main gallery. They're a little bit hidden, but they are so worth the visit. So when you visit the museum, please come to these rooms that are absolutely stunning. The works we've chosen to speak about today are these two very special works that are presented in the center of this gallery, and they are personal devotional works painted by Titian for Charles, the Holy Roman Emperor, Charles V, Charles I, King of Spain, the same person. And just beginning with the fascinating story of the work itself, this Ecce, Homo, which is in Latin for words that come from the passage of the Bible, from the book of John, where Pontius Pilate declares in Latin, Ecce Homo, behold the man. And this is, behold the man who is beaten, tortured, and presented to a very hostile crowd, headed to his crucifixion, image of Jesus. And Titian paints this work, and he actually takes it with him over the Alps from Venice, takes it with him to his meeting with the Emperor Charles V in Augsburg, and gives it to him as a gift. And we know that from that time, it was very highly valued as a personal devotional work for Charles, and he took it with him to Ecce, which is the monastery where he retired to when he abdicated, and kept it with him until he died. And at the same time, we also know that he requested and commissioned the last work of art that in this very long and fruitful relationship that both he and his son Philip II had with the artist Titian, which is so amazing and gives the Prado this vast collection of works of arts by Titian, which I believe are close to 50 works here on display. His last commission was to commission to Titian a work also on stone, an image of the Virgin Dolorosa. He commissioned and indicated what material it should be painted on, and he also sent an image of what he would like to be painted. And so we know that these are very personally important for Charles. And the Prado Museum a few years ago had a wonderful exhibit that was titled in Latin. It's called In Lapidum Depictum, or In Lapide Depictum. And there's a lot of information on the web still about this exhibit, and it's fascinating, and it really helped me prepare for what I'm telling you today. The idea of what Titian, first of all, the idea of painting on stone was a moment to innovate. It was a moment to innovate on different supports to show their mastery. Painting on stone was considered a secret recipe, actually, and Vasari, the contemporary art historian, thinks that it was Sebastiano del Piombo, which we have a work here, also painted on slate, that he was the one who figured out the ancient secret recipe, because it had been written in classical works by Vitruvius and Pliny the Elder of painting on marble, whereas in the 16th century it was easier to find slate, but they were painting on slate and marble, trying to recuperate the idea of an eternal work of art. Stone would never decay like works on panel, and stone would never, or works on panel or on canvas. And it would also give the artist an opportunity to display his mastery of, this work is on slate, so it's a dark stone. The technique that Sebastiano recuperated and that Titian learned and was a master at using, and the curator here at the Prado investigated as to what that secret recipe could be, was that you have to prepare the stone with some sort of hot mix of oil, resin, and wax to seal it before you paint it. But this gives the idea of the color, the dark color of the slate comes through. Titian uses it to create the degradations and the shading of the body, the monumentality, and it's also, the image that he uses is very classical, that even though it's Jesus is bound and beaten and has a crown of thorns, if his head were upright and you exchange the thorns for a wreath of laurel, it would be a very classical, athletic bust like we see from this angle in the corner, which thank you curators at the Prado for putting this together and making it so easy for us to see and to explain. And also one of the challenges with painting like the ancient ideas was to paint with as few pigments as possible. How do you create the idea that the image emerges from the scene, comes out of the stone with very few pigments? And it's using and modeling the background tone and incorporating it. So here we have background tone painted on slate, and with the Virgin Dolorosa, it is painted on white marble. Now, white marble was very much appreciated in the classical Roman and Greek world. It was considered the skin of the gods. All of the sculptures are in white marble. And Titian actually painted this on an archaeological piece of white marble. It is from a classical Roman home. So it's an antiquity in itself that he then paints this devotional image on, which just gives it a whole nother aspect. And he uses the white, thanks to the cleaning, the excellent cleaning that was done in the restoration lab for this exhibit, and to bring these pieces back into our attention. We see these beautiful colors that he used, but also how with 3 different tones of white, he incorporates the white marble underneath to create all of this luminosity and the different shadows. Now, we also know that the idea of the tears on the face comes from the image that was probably a Flemish image that Charles sent for Titian to use as a model, because tears were less common in the Italian devotional painting. And so these works were paired together since they were made, and since this one probably arrived after Charles V's death and was welcomed by Philip II, and they've been paired together and in the royal collection since. Very treasured, very highly valued as objects themselves, and the technique of painting, of how they were innovating and creating a new idea, an eternal work of art, a combination of the challenge. There was actually an argument of what lasts longer, art or nature, and then there was also ideas of competition between sculpture and painting. So the works on stone embody a lot of philosophical arguments and thinking behind the two of them, and they were very treasured by the Spanish royals of the 16th century, Charles V and Philip II, the great Spanish Habsburgs. And we are so fortunate to have them here today in the center of this gallery. And thank you very much for being with us. Come visit and enjoy all of the rest of the paintings as well. And we'll see you again next week on the social media programming.